She was found tied to a park bench beside a small pink suitcase, silent, trembling, and barely able to look anyone in the eye. But what this abandoned German Shepherd puppy did in the weeks that followed stunned every volunteer at the shelter and changed the lives of those who thought they were saving her. It was 6:03 a.m. when Mara called me, her voice breathless, panicked, but trying not to be. "There's a dog," she said, "tied to the old bench by the fence, with a suitcase. Marcus, she's just a puppy." I was already halfway to the door. The bench sat just beyond the parking lot of our shelter, more decorative than functional. We hadn't used it in years, not since the garden expansion pushed traffic to the other side. Most visitors didn't even notice it was there. That made it the perfect place to disappear something, or someone. When I arrived, Mara was already kneeling in the gravel. Her hands hovered, uncertain, just inches from the leash. A small German Shepherd pup sat hunched low to the ground, tethered by a frayed pink rope looped tightly around the bench's armrest. Her ears were pinned back. Her fur was dusty, patchy, but it was her eyes that stopped me. Huge, round, and frozen. Not wide with fear. Frozen, like she hadn't blinked in hours. Like she'd stopped expecting anything at all. Beside her, propped awkwardly against the bench leg, was a small, battered suitcase. It was navy blue with faded cartoon stickers peeling off. Stars, hearts, a smiling sun. The zipper was half undone. "She hasn't moved," Mara whispered. "Not even when I got close. It's like she's not really here." I knelt slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. "Hey there," I said gently, not expecting a response. "You're okay now. We're gonna help you." Her nose twitched. Just once. That was enough. I unlooped the rope, surprised she didn't resist, didn't flinch, didn't bolt. She didn't even tremble. She just stood, stiffly, like a soldier at attention, and waited. We brought her inside, gave her a quiet space in Kennel 12, the furthest from the noise. No other dogs nearby, no barking, just soft lights and a thick blanket. She stood there for an hour, staring at the corner, her back to us. We named her Ellie. No collar, no microchip. The suitcase held a crumpled child's t-shirt, a juice box long gone warm, a small hairbrush, and a single chew toy shaped like a bone. Whoever left her had packed like they thought they were being kind. Like abandoning her with a suitcase somehow softened the betrayal. The vet said she was about 10 weeks old. Slight limp in her back leg. Older injury, possibly from being stepped on or dropped. Malnourished, dehydrated, but nothing fatal. "She's lucky," he said. I wasn't so sure. She didn't eat that night, didn't drink either, just curled tightly on the blanket, back turned, eyes always away. We tried music, we tried silence, we tried softly reading to her. Still, she refused to look. "She's grieving," Mara whispered. Grieving what, we didn't know. That was day 1. Day 4, I noticed something. Every morning when I came in, the blanket had moved, just slightly, angled towards the kennel door. At first I thought it was coincidence, but by day 6 I knew it was intentional. She wasn't just lying there. She was slowly rotating, inching toward the opening. She hadn't barked, hadn't made a sound, but each day the silence felt less like absence and more like watching. She was watching. Waiting. On day 7, I sat just outside her kennel with the suitcase beside me. I unzipped it slowly, took out the shirt, placed it gently at the door. She didn't move. But her eyes, those frozen eyes, they blinked. Once, I stayed there for hours, didn't talk, didn't push, just sat in the quiet with her, the way she seemed to need. That night, when I returned to lock up, the shirt was missing from the door. I found it beside her paw, tucked under her chin. She had chosen it, chosen something. That was enough. By the second week, Ellie started standing when I entered. She didn't approach, didn't wag, but she stood, like she wanted to be ready if something was asked of her. I began walking her. Only in the back courtyard, away from the barking kennels. Her limp made it slow, painful at first, but she never cried, never pulled. Just walked beside me like she was trying to understand why this time was different. One day, a passing pigeon startled her. She flinched, hard, flattened to the ground, then scrambled behind me, crouching like she'd made a mistake. I didn't move, just knelt beside her and whispered, "It's okay. It's just a bird." She looked up at me, not past me, at me. That was the first time. By day 16, she knew her name. Didn't respond to it, not openly, but her ears perked slightly every time I said it. She started eating normally. Her coat grew glossier. Her limp eased. And for the first time since we found her, Ellie lay with her belly exposed, asleep in the sun. Mara saw it and cried. "She trusts us," she whispered. "A little." But the real moment came on day 20. I was closing up for the night, the hallway quiet, lights dimmed. I passed kennel 12, glanced in out of habit, and froze. Ellie was sitting upright, facing the door, eyes locked on me, not blinking. When I stepped closer, she didn't flinch. Instead, she stood and wagged. 1, 2, slow wags. Then she padded forward and pressed her forehead gently into the mesh. It was the smallest thing, but it felt like a roar, like the silence had cracked wide open, like she was saying, "I'm still here." By the time week 4 arrived, Ellie had become part of our rhythm. She waited at the front of her kennel every morning, standing quietly until I passed by. Then she'd sit, eyes steady, ears alert, and watch me move through the hallway like she was memorizing everything. She still hadn't barked. Not once. Not even when other dogs barked around her. Not when the vacuum startled her. Not when the vet adjusted her brace. The silence was her language, and strangely, we all understood it. There was a grace to her stillness. Mara once said, "She's like a ghost trying to decide if she wants to be real again." But little by little, Ellie began to return to the world. She started walking farther during our courtyard sessions, sniffing each bench leg, each tree root, as if remapping what safety meant. She had this way of tilting her head at every breeze, not scared, just thoughtful. Like the wind reminded her of something she'd forgotten. She claimed a specific patch of grass behind the tool shed. Every day, after walking with me for a bit, she'd pull slightly in that direction. Not hard, just enough to say, "There, please." So we sat there together, sometimes for minutes, sometimes for hours. She never lay down fully, always half alert, but her breathing would slow and her eyes would soften. One day I brought the suitcase out with us. She saw it immediately, walked up to it, sniffed the handle, then looked at me. And for the first time since the day she was found, Ellie placed her paw on the side of the suitcase. She didn't try to open it, didn't whimper. She just touched it once, then walked back to me and sat. It felt like a decision. A "this no longer defines me" kind of moment. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. On day 26, something extraordinary happened. I had left the kennel door open just a few inches while setting down fresh water. I turned to adjust her blanket, not realizing she had moved. When I looked back, she was standing in the hallway. Not running, not panicked, standing, tall, calm, and watching. I froze. She tilted her head, and then she walked to me, slowly, casually, like she belonged there. "Ellie," I whispered, both awed and terrified she'd vanish again. But she didn't. She reached me, sat down at my feet, and pressed her side gently into my leg. That was the moment I knew. Not hoped, not wondered. Knew. She trusted me. Later that day, Mara approached me as I was reviewing her intake paperwork. "The 30-day hold ends this weekend," she said quietly. I nodded. I knew where this was going. "You thinking about adopting her?" she asked, voice careful. I looked down at the leash in my hand, the one Ellie now let me put on without hesitation. "Every day," I said truthfully. "But I don't know if I'm what she needs long-term. I'm not home enough. This place is loud, busy. She deserves more than waiting for me between shifts." "She doesn't see it that way," Mara replied gently. "You're her person." I didn't answer, not because I disagreed, but because agreeing hurt. The next day, a family came to visit the shelter. A couple, mid-30s maybe, with 2 boys under 10 and 1 empty leash in hand. They were energetic, loud, kind, but not the right match. At least not for Ellie. I knew before they said a word. When Mara suggested they meet her, I hesitated. "She's not ready," I said. "She's still healing." Visitation room she followed without pause. When the boys ran up too quickly, she didn't bolt. She stayed close to me, watching, ears high, tail still. Then the older boy held out a small toy, a squeaky hedgehog. Ellie looked at it, then looked at me. She didn't move forward, didn't sniff it. Instead, she stepped behind me and sat, quietly, choosing not to engage, but not from fear, from clarity. She knew it wasn't for her. That night, I sat outside Kennel 12 with her. I didn't say much, just held the rope leash in one hand and the tattered suitcase in the other. "You know," I whispered, "you're allowed to want something." She looked up at me. "I want something too," I admitted. That was the first night she fell asleep with her head on my boot. On day 31, I woke up early, earlier than usual. Something felt off. When I reached the shelter, Mara met me at the door. "There's a couple," she said. "Asked for you. Saw Ellie on the website. They're not rushing. Said they'd wait all day if they had to." I found them in the lobby. He was quiet. Worn denim jacket, soft eyes. She had a sweater tied around her waist and worry in her smile. "We're not here for any dog," she said. "We're here for her." They showed me the photo printed from our website. It was Ellie, sitting in her sun patch, suitcase just behind her. "She's the one," the man added. "We don't know why. We just do." I brought Ellie into the visitation room. She froze. She looked at me, then at them, then at the suitcase I had carried. For the first time, she moved first. She walked forward, not rushed, not anxious, with purpose. She stopped in front of the woman. "Saturday." Then laid her head gently on her knee. The woman began to cry. She didn't wipe the tears away. Neither did I. The adoption paperwork took time, not because there were issues, but because no one wanted to rush it. Ellie stayed calm through it all. She sat at the woman's feet, occasionally glancing up, ears twitching whenever the man spoke. It was as if she'd been waiting for them specifically. No nerves, no second-guessing. She had made her choice, and now she was content to simply exist near them. Before they left, I walked them out. The woman carried the suitcase. She asked if they could keep it. "Of course," I said. "It's part of her story." "I think she's ready to write the rest," the man replied, smiling. They had brought a new leash, rose-colored soft nylon. When they clipped it to her collar, Ellie didn't resist. She stood. She looked back at me once. Just once, not in fear, not in sadness, just a quiet thank you. Then she stepped into the car and was gone. That night was quiet. Too quiet. I stayed late, not because I had work to do, but because I didn't know what to do with the time that used to be hers. I walked past Kennel 12 3 times before I forced myself to stop. The space was already cleaned for the next arrival, but I swore I could still hear her nails clicking gently on the concrete, still feel her eyes following me. Mara sat with me in the office, sipping coffee from a paper cup. "You did good," she said. "I didn't do anything," I replied. "She did all the work." "You gave her the space to do it," Mara said. "That's what counts." I nodded, but the ache in my chest didn't fade. Later, when I got home, I found myself checking my phone for updates. There weren't any. No photos, no videos, no messages, which was fine. It was. The family didn't owe me anything. Still, I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I slept with the porch light on, just in case. 2 days later, a text came in from an unknown number. "Hi, it's Elle's new family. Hope it's okay we saved your number from the paperwork. She's settling in." Slowly but beautifully. Attached was a photo. Ellie curled in a sunbeam on a wooden floor, the suitcase beside her just touching her back paw. In the background, a pair of socks, a coffee mug on the ground, and one of those little squeaky hedgehog toys, chewed but intact. The caption, "She found the sunroom first. She hasn't left it all morning." I stared at the photo for longer than I meant to. Then I whispered, "Good girl." Weeks passed. We got a new litter in, 5 puppies abandoned behind a grocery store, all ribs and paws and fear. The smallest, a brindle mix with oversized ears, wouldn't eat. Just stared at the corner of his kennel and trembled. I sat with him for hours. Didn't touch, didn't speak. Just let the silence fill the room like it used to with Ellie. Eventually, he leaned into my leg. I named him Finn. By the end of the week, he was sleeping belly up and snoring louder than any dog his size should. But even with the new arrivals, I still thought about Ellie. Every time I passed her old kennel, every time I saw a suitcase on the street, every time I looked at a dog and wondered what their beginning had been. Then, just after closing on a Tuesday, I heard the bell over the shelter door chime. It was them, Ellie's family, and Ellie. She looked different, fuller, her coat shinier, her eyes clearer, but it was her. The moment she saw me, her tail started to sway, not frantic, not wild, just steady, certain. She walked up to me and leaned into my chest like no time had passed. "She asked to come," the woman said. "She sat by the door for an hour this morning." "We thought she might need closure," the man added. "Or maybe she just wanted to say thank you." We went out to the yard. Ellie sniffed the bench, paused by the corner she used to claim behind the tool shed, then laid down. Not to guard it, but to rest. "I think she remembers," I whispered. "She does," the woman said, "but it doesn't haunt her anymore." They stayed until dusk. Before they left, the man turned to me. "She's different now, still quiet, still thoughtful, but there's light in her again." I watched Ellie hop into their car, her pink leash bouncing with her. She didn't look back this time. She didn't need to. That night, I finally opened the shelter's email inbox, something I usually dreaded. There, at the top, was a message titled, "Ellie's New Adventures." The body was short. She's learned how to bark. Just once a day, at the mail truck. It's always the same time. Always the same sound. One sharp woof. Then she goes back to sunbathing. Like she just wanted the world to know she's still here. We're thinking of getting her a brother soon. Someone younger. Someone she can teach. Someone who doesn't have to carry a suitcase. I blinked fast. Scrolled down. A video loaded. Ellie bounding across a beach. Her brace was off. Her paws dug into the sand like they were made for it. At the edge of the water, she stopped, looked back at the camera, and barked. Once. Then turned and ran again. I didn't cry. But I felt something lift, like maybe her journey had healed something in me too. The day Ellie barked at the mail truck became a kind of legend at the shelter. Mara printed the email and taped it to the break room fridge. "A daily woof," she said, beaming. "Girls got boundaries now." It might seem like nothing to most people. A bark, a moment, a mail truck. But for us, it was a declaration. Ellie, the silent pup with the suitcase, now had opinions, territory, voice, and she used it. I didn't think I'd see her again so soon. But 2 weeks later, she came back. Not with a leash or suitcase this time, but with a purpose. And a puppy. They arrived on a breezy Friday afternoon. Jonah opened the car door, and Ellie jumped out first. No hesitation. No glancing back for reassurance. Just steady confidence. Then, from the other side of the vehicle, a whimper. A tiny, fuzzy face peeked out. Golden brown, wide eyes, a wobbly gait. "I want you to meet Toby," Sarah said, holding the pup in her arms. Ellie kind of insisted. "She found him," Jonah added. "We were hiking and she kept stopping, sniffing at this tree stump off the trail." Toby had been dumped, barely 8 weeks old. Someone left him in a cardboard box taped shut. No food, no water, just silence and fear. Sound familiar? "Ellie wouldn't leave," Sarah said. "We honestly think she remembered, like she saw herself." They brought Toby straight to the vet, then home. But he trembled through the nights, hid in corners, refused to eat unless Ellie was beside him. "She's been teaching him how to trust," Jonah said, watching her nudge Toby gently toward a patch of grass. "We thought maybe it would help to bring him here, to show him it's not all bad." Ellie sniffed around the old kennel yard like it was sacred ground. She didn't linger by her old space. Instead, she led Toby to the bench. She sat beside it. He crawled underneath. Safe. I sat on the grass a few feet away and just watched. Sometimes healing comes full circle. After that, they visited once a week, not always for long. Sometimes just a lap around the building. Sometimes just a check-in. Ellie would walk the perimeter like she was inspecting it. She no longer needed the leash. She never strayed far. Toby, still cautious but learning, followed close. One day, I caught them both lying in the shade of the maple tree near the parking lot. Ellie was dozing. Toby chewed on a stick twice his size. I snapped a photo and sent it to Mara. She replied, "Legacy in action. We got a new intake that Monday." Her name was Lacey, a brindle with a scar along her side and eyes that flinched from every motion. She wouldn't eat, wouldn't let us touch her, wouldn't even face the front of the kennel. That first night, I sat outside her door. Same way I'd done with Ellie. Same quiet, same patience. But she didn't move. Day 2. Nothing. Day 3. She sniffed the air once, then retreated. Then, on day 4, a quiet visitor arrived. Ellie. Jonah and Sarah had brought her by again. Told them about Lacey, how shut down she was, how I didn't know if she'd ever come around. Without waiting, Ellie walked to Kennel 14. She stood in front of the door, still and calm. Inside, Lacey stirred. She didn't come forward, but she lifted her head, looked out. Ellie sat, didn't bark, didn't move, just waited. I don't know how long they stayed like that, 5 minutes, maybe 10. Then Ellie stood, gave one slow tail wag, and walked away. Lacey watched her go. That night, Lacey ate her full bowl of food. Jonah called it the Ellie effect. She doesn't bark at the mail truck as much anymore, he told me over coffee the next weekend, but she still gives it a glare. She's mentoring now, Sarah joked, evolving. But it was more than that. Ellie had become something we couldn't fully explain. Not a mascot, not a miracle. Just a dog who remembered what fear felt like, what loneliness sounded like, and what it meant to have someone wait through the silence. She wasn't broken. She was just necessary. A month passed. Toby grew fast, his legs too long for his body, his bark unpredictable and slightly ridiculous. He started visiting the shelter on his own leash. Sometimes he ran circles around the yard, trying to impress the other pups. Sometimes he'd lay beside the new intakes, mimicking Ellie's quiet presence. He was learning, and so was I. Late one evening, I was the last to leave. As I locked the front gate, headlights pulled into the lot. Jonah stepped out, smiling. "Sorry, late night drop-off." I raised a brow. Then I saw her. Ellie. This time she carried something in her mouth. Not a toy, not a leash, a blanket, worn, software faded pink with tiny clouds on it. "She found it in the laundry room," Jonah said. "Wouldn't leave it. We figured it must be meant for someone." She trotted past me into the lobby, lay down beside Kennel 3, and placed the blanket at the bars. Inside was a trembling puppy with matted fur and cloudy eyes. He blinked at her, then shuffled forward, and laid his chin on the blanket. Ellie didn't move, just exhaled and closed her eyes. It was like she was saying, "You're not alone anymore." The next morning we found them still there. Ellie was curled up outside the kennel, the pink blanket tucked beneath her paws. Inside, the puppy, who we later named Bramble, was snoring softly, his nose pressed against the kennel door, inches from her. No one said a word. We didn't need to. Some moments explained themselves. Ellie stayed until Bramble was moved to the... Even then, she stood outside the door, tail swaying, eyes steady, like she was passing him off to the next guardian. "She's a therapy dog now," Mara whispered, hand over her heart. "Untrained, unofficial, but real." I nodded. Ellie wasn't just a success story anymore. She was a beginning. Weeks passed, then months. Bramble recovered quickly. His sight cleared, his fur grew thick and golden. He followed Toby around like a duckling, learning the world from a pup just months older. Toby, for all his goofiness, had grown into his own sense of purpose. One afternoon, I watched them sit together in the shade, sharing a stick. Ellie walked over, dropped another beside them, and sat like she was teaching them the art of quiet companionship. That became her rhythm. Come, sit, wait. She never pushed, never barked, just offered presence. We started calling it Ellie Hour. Every Thursday, Sarah and Jonah brought her in for 1 hour, sometimes more. She made her rounds, visiting the nervous ones, the hurt ones, the ones still hiding. Some responded instantly. Some took longer. But every week there was progress. A shy husky named Tansy licked Ellie's ear one Thursday. A blind terrier, Minnie, curled up beside her without even knowing who she was. We didn't orchestrate it. We didn't ask for it. Ellie just showed up. Then, one day she didn't. I didn't panic, not at first. Sometimes life got busy. Sometimes they missed a week. But when 2 Thursdays passed, and then 3, I called. Sarah answered, her voice soft. "She's okay," she said quickly. "Just resting more lately." There was a pause. "Can we visit? Tomorrow?" When they arrived, Ellie didn't run ahead like before. She walked slowly, carefully. Her gait had changed, still strong, but with a stiffness that hadn't been there before. She paused at the front entrance, nose lifted to the breeze, then stepped inside. Everyone came out to see her. Mara, Jonah, the new volunteers who'd heard the stories, but never seen the legend in motion. Ellie made her rounds. She stopped at Kennel 3-Bramble's old spot, then 12, then 14. Each pause was intentional, like she was remembering, like she was saying goodbye. They stayed an hour, then 2. I knelt beside her in the yard, brushing loose fur from her coat. She leaned into my leg. She's tired, Sarah said. We think she just wants more time at home now. Jonah looked away, blinking fast. She's still eating, still smiling, but slowing down. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She's earned it, I said finally. That night I didn't leave the shelter right away. I sat in the lobby long after closing, staring at the empty bench where she'd first been left. I thought about that first day, about the leash tied tight, the suitcase, the silence. I thought about her eyes, the way they'd once darted at every sound, and how, slowly, she found her voice. Not loud, not demanding, but sure. I thought about every puppy who'd laid beside her since, every human who'd come in broken and left with hope because of a dog who'd once been discarded. The next morning, I found a small box at the front desk. No note, no explanation. Just a photo of Ellie, taken the day she laid the pink blanket outside Bramble's kennel. Her eyes soft, her mouth slightly open in what looked like a smile. Inside the box, her first collar, the rope toy, and a tiny folded shirt, the one from the suitcase. I couldn't speak. Mara reached over and touched my arm. They wanted us to have it. For the next Ellie. I placed the items in a glass case we'd installed the month before, something the board called Legacy Corner. Above it, we hung the photo. Below, a plaque that simply read, "She waited, she healed, she gave back." Ellie, life continued. New dogs arrived, some scared, some angry, some silent. We sat with them, waited. And somehow each one responded just a little faster now, like Ellie had left her imprint in the very air, like the walls themselves whispered, "You are not alone." One rainy afternoon, a little girl came in with her mom. She didn't speak. She wore headphones, carried a small bear in one hand, a juice box in the other. She wandered the kennels, pausing at each one, silent. He was snoozing, legs twitching from a dream. The girl sat cross-legged in front of his kennel, watching quietly. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, Bramble opened one eye. He stood, stretched, and padded to the gate, and rested his nose against the bars. The girl reached out slowly, so slowly, and touched his fur. Then a whisper, barely audible. "Hi," her mom cried instantly. The girl turned and said louder this time, "I like him." Mara and I just looked at each other. Ellie, always Ellie. 3 months later, we got a letter from Sarah and Jonah. They didn't say much, just that Ellie had passed peacefully on a quiet morning, the sun warming her favorite spot by the window. She'd gone in her sleep, with Toby curled up beside her. They enclosed one final photo. Ellie, standing on the beach, toes in the surf, head tilted to the sky, eyes closed. The caption, "She ran. She rested. She gave us everything." That evening, I walked out to the bench, the same one she'd been tied to. I sat there for a while, closed my eyes, listened to the breeze. I could almost feel her there, nose against my hand, presence like gravity. Not a ghost, not a memory, just Ellie. And somewhere, I knew, another puppy was finding their voice, because Ellie had shown them how. And us too. That silence doesn't mean broken. And sometimes healing starts with nothing more than someone willing to sit and wait.